I was half expecting this pilot to open like season 9 and we'd see a portrait of the med school getting thrown in a dumpster, but you didn't go in that direction.
No, season 9 is like a what if, or like
Mhm.
a Elseworld situation. Not a lot of that is canon.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's best for everyone if they just think of that as a spinoff, and really just we are picking up where season 8 left off.
This is the true season 9.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's start with where we left off 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Season 9 was an experiment driven partly by necessity. The original hospital had been demolished.
Yeah.
The revival brings us back to Sacred Heart, but
Yeah.
it also makes clear that JD and Elliot's life events from that season, being married, starting a family, still count.
Whoa, talk about a 10-gallon hat.
Beyond undoing that demolition, do you consider the rest of that season canon?
Not really. You know, I'd be candid that this show was, without a doubt, written as if the spinoff didn't happen. But I always take great pains to say that ninth year of the show, I don't want to go on and on about it too much, but it was supposed to be a spinoff. I thought it was, if it had not been titled Scrubs, it would have been viewed under a different microscope because I thought some people did awesome work. I thought Dave Franco and Mike Mosley and Eliza Coupe were crushing it. And I understand in the old network TV days why they kind of got nervous and renamed it Scrubs, even though it was supposed to be called something else. You know, I'm not really kind of caught up in that stuff too much. It doesn't really bother me. Even as a TV fan, I'm okay with. I kind of roll with the punches. So this is definitely written as if we're the 8th season was the finale of Scrubs, as it was kind of supposed to be.
In the premiere, we learned that JD and Elliot are divorced, with the implication that the decision came from Elliot. What went into the choice to split them up, and how much of that backstory do you explore in this first season?
You know what? It's and by the way, all these things are with the caveat of I was very lucky to have, you know, super talented writers and showrunner working on the show, and Asim Batra, who, you know, was an original Scrubs writer, and a bunch of new writers and stuff over there. Because you know you're smart enough and know in the know enough to know that even though I would always make sure that I'm creatively involved in Scrubs because it's kind of, you know, my first baby, without being too cliche, you're smart enough to look at my schedule and know that I'm running Shrinking and the Steve Carell show and stuff. So look, when those guys came to me and said that you ended kind of the 8th year on, you can hope all your dreams come true just this once, that even if you stand around outside of a hospital with a very handsome janitor, that was me.
Just this once.
And wish that you have your big happy ending. Nothing ever turns out 100% happy. It's always more complicated than that. And I think the biggest thing was when the writers all spoke about that couple. I would not say if you watched the first 9,000 episodes of Scrubs that you would go, that's a couple that's definitely rock solid, like Turk and Carla, and is going to make it no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would also say that, you know, part of the fun of continuing a show like this is that these stories are never over. You know, so I think it's just kind of, I thought it was an interesting take, just because I've reached the age now that I'm watching a lot of friends go through the same things that they're going through.
As you get to be 50, some marriages work out in the example of Carla and Turk, and some marriages don't. In this example, we always had a very contentious relationship. And it's important to remind the audience that what JD sees at the end of episode 8 in that projection on the sheet is what he hopes, what he dreams his life would be, not necessarily what his life will be. But from a writing point of view, I think it's way more interesting to write both drama and comedy with conflict, and to just come back and have us be happily married, I think doesn't give us as many opportunities as to write to a couple that definitely has a lot of love for each other, but maybe aren't the best partners for one another going at it at the workplace, and then eventually becoming friends again.
I thought it was a great way in when I read it, because, you know, this way you get to figure out, like, how are they going to co-parent and then eventually work together again? And then when are they going to start dating, and how does that feel? And how does that feel to the other person? And yeah, like Zach said, just so much more opportunity for comedy and drama than if they were just happy together. So I thought it was great.
You and Donald have a great scene in episode 2 where you touch on the divorce. How important is Turk's friendship to Elliot now that JD isn't the primary anchor in her life anymore?
Good question.
I think his friendship, I think their friendship is very important. Even though JD's back in Turk's life and back at the hospital and stuff like that, there was still a divide when they broke. And Carla and Elliot were on one side of the divide, and Turk and JD were on the other. Carla and Turk are married, so they're out of the whole situation. But Turk and Elliot, there was a divide because of the breakup, and Elliot, being the brave one, bridged the gap, saying, "Listen, man, I miss my best friend. Even though JD's not around anymore, the four of us, we were a group. We came into this together, and now you're acting like you barely know me, or you're acting like you're on this guy's side. You don't need to be on anybody's side. I need you to be who you've always been to me." And first of all, that's brave of Elliot to do, and second, Turk needed to hear that. He was dealing with his own, but he definitely needed to hear that. And I think that was very important for the two of them to mend that relationship. It's especially for the audience to see that, because it would suck for the audience to see Turk riding real hard for JD and not giving Elliot any love. That's not Scrubs either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's such a real dynamic. I thought it was handled so well because it is what happens with couples with divorce and their friendships. And so I love that they addressed it. And a piece of Scrubs trivia, when we shot that was one of the first scenes Donald and I shot together in the revival. And the very first scene we shot was right there at the Pac-Man machine.
The medical interns are having a Pac-Man tournament. Apparently we're all 12.
I love Pac-Man.
When we spoke at ATX last year, you talked about this revival showing a doctor who's been beaten down by the system. Going into the premiere, I had assumed that burden would fall on JD, but instead we see Turk grappling with a bit of depression. And that emotional state becomes part of the catalyst for JD's return. Why was it important for that weight to land on Turk? And what did that unlock creatively for the story that you guys are aiming to tell?
It's two things. One was, without getting too personal, the story's based on, was originally based on my best friend from college named John Doris. He's still a cardiologist and heart surgeon out here. And it's going to age us both because I just said we go to college together. He is on a lightning path towards retirement, not to retire from working, because everybody that retires from working kind of ages 20 years in the first 6 weeks. But he's just been beaten up by doing this for so long. Just kind of watching him do that and deal with not only the bureaucracy of medicine, and not only the inability to help people, and not only being part of an industry that are, even though that you got into it because you want to be of service, that almost everybody has nothing but ill to say about it, the healthcare industry, understandably. We thought the bigger surprise was that the guy, who seemed kind of, two characters, if we're doing spoilers, that seemed kind of Teflon, were the ones that had kind of almost reached the end of their rope. And one of them, spoiler, is shuffling off out of this career. And the other one, we thought it was good for Turk because the thing that he was missing was the community and friendship that enabled him to get through it. Because not to be too corny, it literally drafts off the theme song, of not being able to get through it on your own.
The original series finale gave us JD's fantasy of how things might turn out, but it was the penultimate episode that showed what he imagined life would be like if he and Turk were running Sacred Heart together. Now that they are running the place together, what does that reality look like, and how does it change the dynamics of their friendship?
Wow.
That's a great question. I think that they are both very good leaders. I think they'll obviously butt heads when they don't agree, as happens in episode 2, as you saw. They're both finding their footing with how to be the two heads of the hospital. But I think they're really going to change the place around and bring a younger energy to how it's run, because it's been run by older folks. And I think that they're going to try and bring a youthful energy to it.
Quiet as kept, we're just as old as the folks were that were running it when they were put in charge.
That's true. That's hard to digest, but true. I think Johnny told me he was 40.
Yeah, when he started, he was 40.
Now, John, at the end of episode 1, Dr. Cox retires as chief of medicine. For a character whose entire identity has been wrapped up in that hospital, what does it mean for him to actually walk away from the place that has, for in large part, defined him?
I think it was really interesting for Bill Lawrence to explore fatigue and exhaustion and burnout, which is pervasive in my demographic. I'm 66, and I see people and they're toast, man. And I think it's really interesting for Cox to be done. And that takes a lot of spine. And so for Billy to put that on the page was really delicious.
It's one of the things that Bill is really good at. He was very good at with Scrubs, right? To really put that on the page, what's really gone, and then find what's really done, what's really good, what's really happening, and then find the warmth and the humor along with the emotion.
There's a moment where Cox explains to JD why he's the right person to replace him as chief of medicine. And I feel like in that scene, there's a vulnerability there that feels new for Dr. Cox. What was it like to play that side of him, being honest about his feelings for JD without that sarcastic bite?
It felt like Billy was writing to John McGinley's strengths, so that there's very little acting and more just behavior and telling the truth.
Spoken like an actor.
Now, when Cox explains why JD is the right person to succeed him as chief of medicine, that scene feels like the closest thing that JD has gotten to outright approval from Dr. Cox.
Yeah.
How did that moment land for you?
Well, I'll put it this way. The hair rose on my arm when you said it. So I found it very moving. You know, Johnny and I have a similar relationship. Obviously, he's a very kind man, not like Cox, but he was someone I looked up to, and he was a mentor to me, and he was intimidating to me. And so there was a lot of realness to what we played on the show. And now, you know, I'm directing the pilot, and Johnny has extreme respect and admiration for me and support for me. So all of that stuff is really real to me. I'm playing that scene with Johnny, with him saying, like, you're the one who's going to lead us, had a lot of meta levels to it.
It's my favorite part of the episode, that scene at the end with the two of them. And the episode has so many great moments, but that one where he clenches his jaw and he's like, that doctor wanted your job, and it's gonna make me warm at night knowing that he's gonna make your job. And but that laugh at the end of that is warranted because of how great Johnny is throughout that moment. Listen, I'm not gonna be here for you. This is up to you now. You misunderstood me when I said I want you to come back. I want you to come back, and I want you to do for them what I did for you. I don't want you to come back and be my kid again.
I'll tell you something that's even more meta, is that I realized while I was directing the pilot, is that when Bill first said, hey, let's get the band back together. Let's do a Scrubs reboot. Let's all get everyone back together, and it'll be so much fun. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in. And then he was like, oh my God, this person signed on, and Johnny and Donald and Sarah, and it's all happening. And we figured out the deal with Disney. It's all happening. I'm like, great, great, great. And then you're going to direct the pilot. Amazing. And then it finally landed when we started the pilot. He's like, but I'm not going to be there. I mean, I'm going to be there in spirit, but I can't be there. He's got all these other shows. He's going to be there in spirit. He's going to be there as our mentor. But it was very meta because it felt like the whole tone of what that first episode is like, with Cox being like, oh, you misunderstood. You're in charge now.
And Zach directed the pilot, but he also has been producing and writing and directing and all the things. Yeah.
It's great to know that everybody that's working on this thing really, really, really wants this thing to work out. You know what I mean? And also that they have an understanding of what it is. Because, sometimes you get revivals and you get shows remade, and it's not the same people necessarily involved. When season 9 came out, Bill definitely stepped back from season 9 and was like, and that turned out to be something completely different from what Scrubs is. And so to come back and know that we're making what we originally set out to make for for not only for us, but for the fans and for the new fans, it's really dope. You know what I mean? It's something that I think that's the reason why we're all here. 'Cause we definitely feel like there's more story to tell. We can tell it properly because we've done so much research on it, from the podcast to, just the years of the friendship that's lasted since we've finished the show.
In episode 2, there's a moment where JD feels the urge to call Dr. Cox for guidance and then consciously chooses not to. How important was that decision in defining who JD is now and in showing that he isn't just falling back into old rhythms?
It was a huge Zach Braff thing. Look, it's so funny to have gone through this journey, however it turns out, Ryan, because, you and I talked about it before. Everybody that was on Scrubs was still working because they're all so super talented. We all were doing lots of other different things, but we all had this kind of, real desire to go, hey, why not do it again? Just because we all. It's like when you think about the best times of your life. We all had such a great time. We're so connected. We're friends in real life. We want to be around each other anyway. So then we were like, we should do it, and if it goes great, great, and if it goes poorly, at least we tried. We'll get to spend some time together. And so when we agreed to do it, then everybody we were like, oh, now we have to actually think about what it is, And Zach Braff, to his credit, was like, I'm a 50-year-old man. I don't think I can go, and and wander around being the same goofy youngster. There's a weird burden of what network television used to be. We did 1,000 episodes of Scrubs, and someone asked Zach, hey, how much do you think JD changed from the beginning to the end? And he's like, I think at the end I had a beard, and I think we owe it to people that got invested in these characters to go, oh, he did grow up, and he did reach a level of maturity that he can be for others what the older characters on Scrubs were once for him, and so that's the story we wanted to tell. I struggle. I look in the mirror, Ryan. I think I'm still like a young boyish comedy writer, and there are people at work that call me sir. It's bullshit, man. I don't like it.
One of the challenges with a character like JD is that he, as you said, he has to evolve. He has to grow up, especially if we have him in this role as chief. But you also don't want to lose that childlike wonder audiences found so endearing. Did that make maintaining JD's fantasies even more essential in this revival as a way for him to occasionally escape the seriousness of this new position?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, the two gifts we have are, one, his internal monologue and fantasy life. It might be tweaked, but it's never going to completely go away. And two is Zach Braff and Donald Faison in real life, whether it be their commercials or their podcast or just what they're like when you spend time with them. Anytime that they're alone together, they're infants. And and we all have one friend like that. And that very authentic friendship of two people that are definitely at a different stage in their life that still can't help but be joyful children when they're together, that's a fun thing for us to put in the middle of that show. So we can hold on to that kind of childlike playfulness with those guys, but they have to be very careful to make sure no one else is watching. You know what I mean? They have to act like, it's how I feel every day, Ryan. I'm here right now pretending to be a grown-up, dude. I'm not great at it. Sometimes I wear glasses. It helps. People go, oh, that guy's serious.
One of the quiet contrasts the revival draws is that while JD and Elliot didn't make it, Turk and Carla did. They're still together, raising 4 daughters. They've built a life that's lasted 25 years. What do you think allowed their relationship to endure in a way some of these others haven't?
Definitely Carla. I think she's got there's definitely passion and affection, not romance. She's not addicted to the romance and the fantasy. She's all about relationship, let's communicate kind of thing. And I think that to a great extent, Turk is like that too. But he heeds the call, and he's been a great student and a great partner. He's grown and learned as we go along.
One of the things I think audiences always respected about Carla was that she genuinely loved her job. She never needed to sort of move up to feel fulfilled, always saw value in exactly where she was with the patients. With so much having changed for everyone else in this revival, what did it mean to you to find Carla in such a familiar position?
I thought it made sense for Carla because of someone who really genuinely cares about their job, someone who has to take care of their family, who now has 4 children, whose husband is the chief of surgery, that, she's always known who she was and where she was and loved it. You know, I think with Bill at one time, he wanted to create a storyline for Carla where she was going to become a doctor. And I had a visceral reaction to it. I was like, why?
Wow.
Why? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with what's wrong with being a nurse? I got very Carla on him. But it just felt important to me that she and that person and that job was represented. It's just as important to her. She loves it. You know, I think that she'll have to face the repercussions of being this age with 4 children in this job in this age. But the biggest reason, number one, is I love this job too. And the money pays well. You know what I mean? But she loves the job.
Are Carla's scenes more rooted in her relationship with Turk now, in being a support system for Elliot after the divorce? Or does she have a storyline that's very much her own this season?
Yes, yes, and yes. So it's very rooted in helping JD and Elliot navigate the separation while Turk and I are still trying to have a relationship with the both of them and still work in the hospital. And then also confronting the challenges of working as hard as you have to work this day and age in a hospital after 20-something years.
Beyond the premiere, we've only gotten the first 2 so far. How many episodes do each of you appear in this season?
I appear in 4.
You appear
I'm
in
3.
You're in 3. Do we get to see Cox's life outside the hospital this season? And does that include any scenes with Jordan?
Yes and yes.
How is Cox adjusting to not going and clocking in every single day at Sacred Heart?
He has much bigger problems.
Interesting. Obviously, you guys know these characters inside and out. So few shows these days go 180, 200 episodes. But at the end of this initial revival run, did either of you walk away feeling like you learned something entirely new about your characters?
I can tell you that I walked away knowing something entirely new about myself that inevitably permeates the character is the appreciation for the first experience, like the Scrubs OG, if you will, where I took it for granted because I'd never done a show before, you know, so it was over. I kept it moving. I was looking for my next job, and I've been fortunate enough to work pretty consistently until you start doing your next job and saying, oh, it's not all like this. This is different. This is different. This relationship is different. This group of people is different. This kind of work, this is its own thing. And to have the opportunity now to approach it with that level of appreciation is a gift and a lesson. A gift that I take and a lesson that I'm still trying to learn.
John, what about you?
Right?
Yeah. I need new friends like a hole in the head. So to be with the ones that I love and to be able to circle around the base paths with them again, that's a happy spot for me.
Remind me not to invite you over to a barbecue.
I don't want to meet any new people.
Okay.